Experience makes a difference. And when that experience includes eye-opening situations on a trading floor and at various financial firms, a lot can be learned. Ask Thomas Manetta. This is his podcast, and he wants you to understand what can go on with your money. I'm Patrice Sikora. Thomas, last time you mentioned you'd been with a couple of different firms. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I had an experience where I got to see a lot of different kinds of firms, and they were all, learning experiences in their own right. But when I look back on them now, a lot of those experiences were not pleasant necessarily. They were things that I had to do in order to get into the industry, and it's not the same now for. Not necessarily the same now for, say, a young advisor getting into the industry. But as I mentioned, some of those experiences were not pleasant, and I think that kind of sticks with me now as I reflect on the opportunity that I now have as an owner, and it really makes me feel a lot more grateful having gone through all of that. But I do think it's important to talk about it because it reveals a side of the business that's still around. And it's not as prevalent as today as it was back then, but it is something that clients are still exposed to, whether they know it or not. So that's why I think those experiences are important to talk about.
Well, you did say that the last 20 years have been a progression toward conflict-free advice. Was there a critical turning point when you realized that this was what you wanted, this was what you needed to do?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a point where I can definitely point to one particular time. It wasn't easy selling insurance when I started just to get into the industry. It wasn't easy to go through the Morgan Stanley training program and then not be successful. That was, not something that I look back on as being, a highlight of my career. But when I decided to leave Schwab in the spring of 2012, I had completed my certification program at the University of California, Berkeley. I had just finished my master's program in financial analysis at the University of San Francisco, and I was, looking forward to launching my own independent practice, and I thought, why not? I mean, that should be something that everyone should celebrate, and certainly it should be the goal of everyone, or especially financial institutions like Schwab, who openly say that they support the efforts of independent financial advisors. But as it turns out, when I went independent, my mother-in-law asked if she could transfer her account to me from Schwab. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. Thank you for that. That's a good way to start. And she did. And the day after she transferred her account, I got a FedEx envelope at my door from Schwab Legal. And they were threatening to sue me for being in violation of a non-compete agreement. And so they decided to come after me with everything they had because my mother-in-law had transferred her account to me. And in that moment, I realized that they actually thought that they owned that relationship, that they owned the relationship with my mother-in-law. And I thought, how bizarre is that? How do they actually feel like they could tell my mother-in-law what to do with her life savings and her money? And by extension, why could they do that to anyone else? And so I started to really go down that rabbit hole of, understanding how the whole enterprise works, how Schwab and Fidelity are being very much the same, how they treat the clients that are, that choose to custody their assets there. And it was a long, drawn out process. I spent a lot of money defending myself. And fortunately, I came across an attorney who rightly told them that you cannot enforce that particular type of non-compete in California, and they went away. But it wasn't without, a significant amount of damage to me financially. And, it wasn't something that I anticipated happening. And it left a really big mark on me, because I felt like I had done, such a good job there. And, I was pursuing higher education, and I was doing things that were not asked of me to make myself a better advisor. So I was on a different kind of, my arc was, I thought in the right direction. And then I just got cut off, at the knees by a firm that felt like they owned, their clients. And when you think about some of the other things that happen at Schwab, you can be a registered investment advisor, and you can pay Schwab for referrals from their retail clients. And so Schwab is actually selling relationships to independent advisors who are supposed to be, conflict free, but the client never knows that they're being monetized. No one, that's not something that's made public, but they do that. And so you have these institutions that are so conflicted, that are pretending to be wealth management firms that are supporting the efforts of independent advisors who are hopefully acting as fiduciaries. But in reality, they're not actually living up to that at all. And in fact, that's not even their intention. Their intention is not to, that they're not set up to benefit the end client. And that really is something that I think a lot of people should know.
So help me here, Thomas. Do you mean that a client who is with, say, Schwab, cannot choose to move their account to someone who is an IRA but had been with Schwab, but Schwab could sell their account to an IRA?
Yeah. So you go to Schwab as a retail client, and you go there because it's a great option. It's cheaper. It's better than the other institutions, obviously. And that's, you can't take that away from them, from Schwab. But Schwab then, they believe that now that they own that relationship. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is specific to the branch consultants that they have in their offices.
Okay.
So they give them a practice, and those practice, that's a collection of clients that particular consultant didn't have to go out and get. And that's fair enough, right? That's great. But when that consultant decides to go and become a full service advisor, which they can't do at the branch, they're not allowed to. When they leave to try to do that, that very thing that, that every advisor should do, which is to become a conflict-free independent advisor, and one of those clients moves with them, they will come after you with everything that they have. And and it's not like their intention is to win. That's not the point. The point is that they want to make an example of you, because if they didn't, then every other consultant at the branch would leave and take clients with them. And so there's this constant kind of conflict, internally. Like, they don't want to make the branch consultants full service advisors. They don't want to advertise that, but they're not. They're limited in what they can do for clients. And so the end client at Schwab is not getting the best thing possible. They're getting a reduced version of that. But if they want to go find an advisor within Schwab, Schwab's happy to sell that relationship to an outside advisor who pays for that relationship. And so all of that, all of that kind of mixes together, and you realize how, the end client really isn't the beneficiary. It's not like they're thinking about your interest at all. They're thinking about, well, now that we have you, how can we make money off of you? And, and then not even share that with you. And how can we, how do they advertise that? They advertise themselves as being a wealth management firm, but they're really not. They can't be, because they don't have, advisors in the branches that can fulfill that role. And there's a better version of advice. And that version is to be an independent advisor on a platform that doesn't do all those things, that doesn't have all those conflicts. And that's why Altruist is such an amazing solution for independent advisors, because you don't have to deal with any of that. And that's just so powerful for the end client, which should be the goal of advisors, everywhere.
And Altruist is?
And Altruist is a firm that's been built from the ground up for one reason, just one purpose. And that is to support independent advisors who want to do the right thing every day and defend their clients every day and make sure that their interests are protected more than anything else. They don't have any other conflicting goal in mind. They just want to do that. And there's no other institution that does that. You can't find any other firm out there that has, set themselves up that way. And so as an advisor, when you structure your business that way and you're an owner and you're on the Altruist platform and you're working with your clients on things that are incredibly important, especially if they're going through a life change where they really want to know that you're going to take care of them. The only way that you can really authentically answer that question to a client is if you've structured your business in such a way that is without conflict. There's nothing preventing you from doing the best thing for your client. And when you do that, the relationships that you have with your clients become so much more powerful. You're so much closer because you don't have to make compromises, and they know that. They can feel that. And that kind of connection allows you to do things for clients that you've never done before.
With that really, really positive feeling, were there any times at the wirehouses or the bigger brokers where you did feel, okay, this isn't that bad?
Well, I felt like when I went through Morgan Stanley, I felt like, that was an accomplishment that I should have been proud of. And it didn't turn out to be that because I just couldn't get behind, selling products to clients that I didn't think were in their best interest. And of course, the experience that I had at Schwab when I was helping people, especially during the financial crisis of 2008, that was an incredibly rewarding experience because I learned so much in such a short amount of time in how to deal with, actually deal with clients at scale, really. And that was a really positive experience. But, the moment that, changed everything was a year ago next week when I finally launched my independent practice, because a lot of that noise just disappeared. And it was no longer a part of, my everyday kind of thought process when it came to clients, because the only thing I was thinking about was the end client. And so, yes, there were positive experiences, certainly, but, I think there were more of I think I have more scars than I have, good memories.
Well, when you did become an owner, what changed for you? I mean, obviously that is a huge step to take. And how did that experience compare with your background, your past experiences, your past lives, I should say?
Well, I think it's important to realize that, when I was a teenager and my father was a very successful stockbroker, there was an expectation that I was going to follow in his footsteps. There was that was kind of the understanding, and it didn't turn out that way. And, if it had turned out that way, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I would have been a totally different person. And so all of that stuff that I went through, I think, was necessary for me to really learn how this business works on my own and appreciate it on my own. And then when I became an owner of my firm, I realized immediately why all of those experiences were so powerful, because now I have this canon of knowledge to draw from where I can help clients navigate through all of these different institutions, wherever they may be. I can show them with clarity and with and being authentic. I can show them exactly why there's a better way of doing it. There's a better way of getting financial advice. And there are going to be more and more advisors like myself who will be doing just that, because the reward, from it benefits everyone. It benefits me as an owner. It benefits the client, and it benefits the custodian because they're doing the right thing. So that's why I think, the experience as an owner At least, when I first launched, that was the experience. But then I had these 3 amazing experiences over the past 12 months with 3 clients who were going through significant life change. And because I was able to be authentic, because I was able to look them in the eye with absolute honesty and tell them, yes, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to, make sure that everything's going to be all right. And knowing that my business was structured in such a way that, I was completely completely without conflict. And I knew that the institution in Altruist was 100% behind me to support me in that effort, which is something I never had before. And so these relationships that I had, these 3 particular relationships, were so much closer. And the benefit of that was that we were able to do things and for them that I never would have done at any other institution that I ever worked at before. And so I hope that we can get into that.
We will. I was just going to say, we're going to tease that. We'll get into that in the next episode. But emotionally for you, is this draining?
Well, I think that, there were particular times where, especially after I left Schwab, when I had just gotten married, we had just had our daughter, and I was, being pursued by Schwab, and my health was destroyed. I was overweight. I wasn't working out. I was under so much pressure. I live in the Bay Area. It's very expensive. And, and being, starting a business from scratch, basically, at the time of my life that I did it, that was emotionally draining. That was a tax that I didn't expect, to have to endure, but I did. And, now, what I have now as an owner is so liberating. It's so fulfilling. It's like I'm happy for the first time in, in so many years. I can't even remember when I felt like this, this gratified by, this fulfilled by my job, which doesn't even feel like a job anymore. So, yeah.
All right. So you have 3 clients now. We'll talk about these in the next episode, like I said, but give us a little preview here. 3 and big life changes for all of them.
Yeah. So I work with, I have 3 clients who are women, and they are in their early 70s, early to mid 70s. And 2 of them lost their husband. And one of them was completely unexpected. And we'll get into what, happened to him. And the third was a client who lost her sister. And so they were all going through these really tough changes in their lives. And all 3 of them knew nothing about finance, knew nothing about, anything that they knew nothing about where how to run the bills. They didn't know where all the money was. They didn't understand what estate planning was. They didn't understand any of it. And it was overwhelming, not just because they had just lost someone so close to them, but it was overwhelming because they knew they had to deal with this, this issue of, the estate with all of the money. And it was a tremendous amount of pressure. And because I was able to get so close to them and take all of that off of their plate, they were able to just focus on grieving. They were able to focus on themselves, and they didn't have to worry about, some unsavory financial services guy trying to manipulate them or hurt them. I was only trying to help them. And that's the beauty of it, is that I knew that I was truly going to be able to help them without any conflicts that would get in my way, and that I would, be able to take them to a much better place. And that's exactly what happened. And we're closer now than we've ever been. And they're, and they understand how all of the moving parts work. And it's very transparent. It's very easy for them to see it. Whereas before everything was in boxes, or the statements were everywhere, and, accounts were everywhere, and they didn't know where, didn't even know how many accounts they had. And so now everything is just very simplified and very easy for them. And they tell me all the time, they say, I don't know what I would have done without you, because that was just a really scary time. And it's, the pain is still there, but that pressure isn't.
And that seems to be a very important theme for you, this helping and not hurting.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Well, I obviously being able to help someone, when somebody looks at you and says, what's going to happen? What does all this mean? And you are, let's say, a salesman for a wirehouse. You see opportunity. You see a chance for you to, sell a product, or, because a person is vulnerable, as bad as that sounds. But that happens more often than it should. But when your intentions are pure, and your business is set up in a way that is for the benefit of the end client, and somebody asks you for help, and you're able to deliver that, and you're able to also see that happen in real time, and see what happens when you do that, and how that makes you feel, it's an experience that I never thought possible when I first started out in doing this. And it's the only thing that I want to do for the rest of my career, for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. To have found something that is so rewarding for yourself and for those around you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't touched on today that you want to make sure we do? I mean, coming up, we will have these 3 incredible stories, but right now.
Well, I think that the thing that I really wanted to touch on, and I hope that we can explore more in greater detail, is how this business has changed, how it's fundamentally changed by the introduction of a custodian like Altruist, and how that really gives, there's so much opportunity now for advisors to, structure their business in the right way to help people. And I don't know that, a lot of advisors know that this opportunity is out there, or they understand what it means. But, for those advisors who want to do the right thing, that are interested in helping and not hurting people, there's a solution out there, and it's amazing. And it's the reason why I decided to start the podcast.
Well, we will get into that in much more detail. But right now, everyone, thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain Finance. Click the follow button to be notified when a new episode is ready for you, and visit our website at www.manettawealth.com, or give us a call, 415-640-2121. Don't forget to click that follow button, okay? There's a good episode that's coming about 3 very important individuals. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain Finance. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.manettawealth.com, or give us a call at 415-640-2121. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Manetta Wealth. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Copyright 2025. This content, which contains security-related opinions and/or information, is provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in any manner as professional advice or as an endorsement of any practices, products, or services. There can be no guarantees or assurances that the views expressed here will be applicable for any particular facts or circumstances and should not be relied upon in any manner. You should consult your own advisors as to legal, business, tax, and other related matters concerning any investment. The commentary in this post, including any company-related blog, podcasts, videos, and social media reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the Manetta Wealth Management employees providing such comments and should not be regarded as the views of Manetta Wealth Management LLC or its respective affiliates, or as a description of advisory services provided by Manetta Wealth Management or performance returns of any Manetta Wealth Management investments client. References to any securities or digital assets or performance data are for illustrative purposes only and do not constitute an investment recommendation or offer to provide investment advisory services. Charts and graphs provided within are for informational purposes solely and should not be relied upon when making any investment decision. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The content speaks only as of the date indicated. Any projections, estimates, forecasts, targets, prospects, and/or opinions expressed in these materials are subject to change without notice and may differ or be contrary to opinions expressed by others.